So I just want to record my thoughts about the braid development, line braiding, fixing traits, and health testing. So currently it's thankfully becoming popular for the best, most ethical breeders to do extensive health testing on their dogs. And this usually involves first using a genetic test to screen for I think there's a couple hundred genetic diseases that not all breeds carry all of them. But if you combine all the mutations among all the breeds that they could possibly have, there's a couple hundred that they can test for. But the potential for ones that they haven't discovered and they don't have tests for is many, many more times that. We don't even know how many more times. You could have combinations of genes creating new diseases. Most diseases are caused by a combination of environmental and genetic factors. The genetic factor creates a predisposition for the genes to start coding a certain way if there's an environmental factor there, and usually there is a trigger in the environment, and it can be just toxic pollution buildup that can turn on bad genes. A poor diet, deficiencies in certain trace minerals can trigger the epigenetics to turn those bad genes on. But if the dog had a more pristine environment chemically, and they were protected from over-vaccination and harmful parasites and what else? Oh, just bad things in the diet that cause inflammation. And if they were fed a very nutrient-dense diet with all the trace minerals they needed and enough protein and fat and possibly carbohydrates if they need it, these dogs would not have these bad genes expressed, or at least the expression would be greatly minimized. So health testing really only focuses on the genetic predisposition. It can't account for the environmental triggers. It's most likely the people who just are taking better care of their dogs, and they know more, and they have a more natural approach to caring for their dogs. That means not over vaccinating, not feeding raw, not using chemical pesticides on their dogs. Their dogs likely express their genetics better, and but they can still pass on those predisposition to offspring. And if the offspring are not also protected in their environment, then they will develop the condition. So we want to protect our dogs from the genetic. We want to protect our breedings from those genetic predispositions, because we can't control what new owners do with their puppies and how protective their environment is. So in order to do that, breeders are using health testing to try to screen for these issues. There's many things that can't be screened for genetically, but they screen for through physical exam screenings using x-rays, sometimes MRIs, sometimes just a physical exam to look for abnormalities. And this tells us not about the genotype of the dog, but the phenotype, the expression of these genes and how they appear on a dog and how they're functional or dysfunctional. Because breeds already have fixed traits, they have a certain limited amount of genetic material in their DNA. And so screening is really important to prevent the concentration of these genes in the defective genes. Most of these conditions are caused by 2 copies of the same gene. not just a single copy. I'll have to look up how many conditions are caused by a single copy. These are the most serious because you can't have, any of your dogs be carriers of those conditions. But yeah, most of them is a double copy. So if you have one dog with a copy and you breed that dog with a dog that's clear of that mutation, then at most, some of the puppies will have one mutation, and you just need to keep screening any dogs that you keep back, and eventually you can eliminate that by crossbreeding to clear. But this does not account for the hundreds, possibly thousands of mutations yet to be developed. So people are focusing on these couple hundred, and usually in a breed, it's less than 10 that they're focusing on, and they're absolutely ignoring the fact that by further inbreeding the dog, they're removing genetic diversity and concentrating the genetics even more. And this cannot be done indefinitely without serious consequences. As genetic material is lost through selection, we try to get closer to the certain types so the dogs are more and more related, the more they look alike. And when people do line breeding in their lines, it does it even worse, even faster. So they don't know which bad copies they're reproducing in their dog because there's no testing to screen for it. The only way the best way to avoid duplicate copies of faulty genes is actually to breed in genetic diversity. You want as many different variation of each allele as possible so you can select for the traits that contribute to health. And you can really only do this if you're not rushed. For instance, you have a dog that we'll just use an example of Rihanna here so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Rihanna has this amazing coat. I don't know how many genes are responsible for her coat, and probably no one would because it's such a rare coat that they wouldn't be able to identify what the genes are. So in order for me to create a population size that can be studied, we need more than one dog. Hold on a second, I will be right back.